So radiant as fuck is for the woman who feels like she's lost her spark and ready to reignite it. She's done dimming her light to fit in or to be chosen. She craves deep love, but keeps attracting unavailable men. She wants to release emotional baggage and reclaim her joy, softness, and magnetism. She knows that beauty is more than skin deep, it's energetic. She's curious about embodiment, values, and self-worth. She feels ready to rise into her most radiant, expressed, loved-up self. Is calling in grounded, emotionally safe, masculine king. She's over the 24/7 hustle and she's ready to receive. Radiant as fuck is not for the woman who wants surface fixes but avoids real inner work. She bases her worth on looks and not how she feels, and she isn't ready to own her patterns and energy. It's a big one. She clings to blame on men, on the past, on the neighbor, on the parent. She won't let go of control. She's triggered by words like feminine or magnetism. She rejects emotional, spiritual, or energetic growth. She believes softness is weakness and she would rather stay stuck than shine. So in the next hour together, we will see what true feminine radiance is and how emotional baggage dims your glow. All right, we're going to talk about what true feminine radiance is and how emotional baggage dims your glow and repels the right man. The secret to releasing stuck emotions so you feel lighter, look younger, and become more magnetic. So firstly, to tell you just a little bit about myself, I'm not going to talk about myself too much because this isn't about me. I was born in the USSR and moved to Australia when I was 11. I started hair at 14 and I moved out of home by 16 and never went back. I studied naturopathy at 25, moved overseas by 27, fell pregnant by 29, and sort of had my life together up until that point. Studied Reiki at 29 while I was pregnant, which was awesome. And sort of became a solo mum with nothing again at 31, which, you know, I didn't expect because I sort of had it all together up till that point. Then I started Moon Main Healing House at 31, and I'm going to talk about the heartbreak piece of this. And then Lady in the Red Dress at 35. I started my first business, which were smudge sticks. So I just started rolling smudge sticks when I was newly single with my little Beb, who was 1 at the time. And it kept me really calm, like the actual action of doing it. That was my way of calming myself down and sort of meditating and figuring out my next steps. And it was kind of a... This picture's so cute. Well, he's like sitting next to me. So I involved my son in it as well. Then eventually, not long after that, I found my dream home and lived there. That became the Moon Main Healing House. And it had this stunning view, which I miss so much. I actually only moved out this year, but you know, change is good. Change had to happen. And here is us now, and how this is the most recent picture of us, and like just much more full of joy. So this is just a little taster of how much emotional baggage can make a difference, and age stops to sort of matter at this point. Why a majority of women aren't accessing radiance? Well, it's not our fault. It's not your fault. We've been conditioned. We're carrying stories and patterns that yours to begin with. You've tried to fix it. You might have, you know, tried to do some affirmations or meditation, and you know, these things are great and they're amazing, but they're only scratching the surface. The real shift happens beneath the surface, which is in the subconscious mind. So you probably haven't used a set of techniques that have got to the root cause of these patterns in your mind. So to give you an example, you start with a vision. So who is the most radiant, magnetic, loved up version of you? What does she feel, believe, embody, and attract? So to give you an example, maybe let's go with a lady in red dress. Before I started this, I created a character. Her name is Ginger. And I still work with Ginger a lot. I really, really felt into what does she move like? What does she talk like? What does she flirt like? All of these things. And what does she smell like? What's her hair like? And it became this, you know, avatar. So then you want to identify what's in the way, old beliefs, emotions, habits, So then for me, I was like, okay, what's in the way of me being this? I was like, okay, so what was stopping me is this fear of being seen. I was like, okay, so that's it. So then create a plan that clears that path. Emotional release practices, nervous system regulation, subconscious rewiring. Now for me, it was subconscious rewiring that was the most powerful. So I did a lot of going back to where it started. I'm now so trained to find the root cause quite quickly, thanks to my mentor. which is awesome because I can really quickly, and this is the work I do with my clients. Yeah, so then I was able to go back and sort of change that. And, Ginger did a great job. I now have no issue being seen at all. All right, so most women haven't been taught how to work with the subconscious, and men, I mean people in general, how to rewire the beliefs and emotional imprints that are quietly running the show. I mean, we all know by now that 95% of our lives is run by a subconscious, which is a really big amount. So if you aren't looking at your patterns and what's happening, it's, how are you living? Okay, so radiance redefined and emotional intelligence. We've been sold a version of radiance that's performative. Real feminine radiance doesn't come from looking the part. It comes from living in truth. And this is a lesson, it's an ongoing lesson, really. But it took me a little while to figure out until I looked around a few years ago and I was like, these aren't my people. And then the problem was I wasn't exuding the version of me that was the truth for me. All right, so radiance is alignment and not appearance. So it is an energy, it is a way of being. True radiance happens when your inner world and your outer expressions match. So you're no longer shape shifting. So you're like, I'm gonna go into this group and I'm gonna act like this, and I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna act like this. No, you are just like yourself along the whole way, and people accept you or they don't, and you learn to be okay with, I entered a real state lately of like, this is how I am, and pretty much, if you don't like it, that's fine. If you do, great. That's awesome. So when your no is also as sacred as your yes, and you honor both. A lot of people struggle to say no. Some struggle to say yes too, but no is a harder one. A lot of people pleasers, if you're here, you know that. But it feels really good to say no when you don't want to do something. Authenticity is magnetic. I mean, we know this, so I won't spend too much time in it, but there is nothing more radiant than a woman who is fully herself. Pretty much sums up what I just said: not performing, not pleasing, not shrinking, just rooted in raw, real. That's what draws the kind of love, friendships, and opportunities that are aligned. If something isn't happening in alignment in my world, I always have to stop and look, okay, where am I not fully being myself? Radiance isn't about being happy all the time. And this is why I'm laughing, because there seems to be this sort of false belief that's the case when it just isn't. You have days when you are not happy, but it's about making those days okay and not spiraling out for days or weeks or however long. I used to marinate in things for months. Now it can be a day. Like yesterday, for example, wasn't the best day, but there are tools you can get yourself out of it. So when you feel your emotions, instead of suppressing them, they don't rule you. They actually liberate you. And this is like the part I'm going to get into later about heartbreak. When you are okay with feeling the grief, you can find a lot of liberation through it. And stored negative emotions also cause a lot of havoc. All right, this is a fun one for the ladies in dating. For the ladies in dating and the ladies in waiting. For the men to hear this one as well. But we're going to talk about emotions. And as an example, I'm going to use anger because, we all experience anger, let's be honest. Scenario: a man you've been dating starts to go cold all of a sudden. And how do we approach this? Healthy anger. I should have started with the non-healthy. Actually, I'll start with the chronic anger, dysregulated and reactive. So she sends a message back to nothing saying, wow, okay, lol, clearly you're just like every other man. Thanks for wasting my time. Or if you weren't interested, you could have just said that instead of breadcrumbing me. Or just double text, sort of lurk through his stories, or post a story quote about how men are just, whatever they are. Men are this or men are that. And same can happen for men as well. So healthy anger and an emotional and intelligent, radiant woman would say something like this. Firstly, she would recognize if it's worth her time. This is a very important point. And then from there, she would act, or she would leave it and just, there's no coming back. So I've noticed things are feeling a little different lately. I really value clarity. So instead of making assumptions, I thought I'd check in. So something like this is values-led communication. And you can feel there's so much self-awareness around. Now, if he's a good man and he is willing to have a conversation, then he will hear that or read that and be like, oh, okay. Yeah. And he'll want to reply, and he'll, open up and respond or not. And if you get no response, then that is your response. So can you see the difference? Healthy anger protects boundaries and reactive anger protects your wounds. That is a really, really good one to remember. So how do we change this behavior for good? Firstly is having the awareness. So the pattern, so you find something, I shut down when I don't feel heard, or I start to act like a little girl when I don't get what I want. So you track the trigger for a deeper wound. So you go back, okay, it was abandonment, rejection, and then through it, you want to do some emotional release. So you want to move your body, whether it's breath work, embodiment, going to the gym, going for a run. My personal preferences are running and dancing. And you want to actually let the emotion leave your body. When you actually feel it, it is a really, really powerful thing. And like you feel completely different. And then you want to rewire from there. So you want to replace that old belief of I'm not enough, or I'm not considered, to I am enough, my voice is sacred, or whatever it is that you're working with, you have to adjust that to whatever is happening for you. So practicing a new behavior in small ways. So you want to practice then the new behavior in small ways. So calmly ask for what you need and let people know what works. That way it builds self-trust and safety in the body again. So whatever is happening around us, so people, relationships, circumstances, environments, triggers, are all external things that are happening around us. Internal is our thoughts, self-talk, beliefs, values, past experiences, very important, and of course our physiology, so the sleep, nutrition, hormones, movement, and all of that. Whatever happens on the external, your emotional state will depend on what's happening on the internal. So the behavior and how we react and communicate and show up will depend on the awareness and regulation. So we want to have the awareness and regulation so the behavior of others and the circumstances don't affect us. And then we can create results and aligned outcomes and much, much stronger connections. And then we're not triggered by everything and everyone that's around us. How releasing old emotion makes you look younger. Old emotional baggage like anger, resentment, grief, and fear often simmers under the surface, keeping your nervous system in a low-grade fight-or-flight state. So when you're in this mode chronically, your cortisol levels stay high. This breaks down collagen. Those are the proteins that keep your skin plump and firm. It also leads to inflammation, puffiness, dull skin, and even hair thinning. Now the inflammation, personally, I've seen in myself, and the puffiness when I've really, I used to have very, very, very bad inflammation when I had a lot of unresolved trauma. Releasing these emotions calm the nervous system, and then your body literally starts to glow. So the heart-face connection. Unexpressed emotions, especially grief and sadness, can show up in your posture and facial expression over time. So think downward turned lips, tension in the brows, or that heavy look in the eyes. I don't know if you can see that in others. I really can. When I just see people pacing around, when you release these emotions, your face actually softens. So it is a thing, you can look more feminine as a woman by releasing stored negative emotions. And your energy, of course, becomes more magnetic and open. Your eyes start to look clear. I always look at people's eyes when I meet them, and I know I can tell a lot. And even when you sort of look at old pictures of me to supposed to now, my eyes have actually gotten lighter, and you'll notice that in certain people can sort of slightly change color, goes lighter. Chinese medicine and somatic healing teach that emotions live in organs. So anger lives in the liver, grief lives in the lungs, and fear lives in the kidneys. So if someone has issues with these, I always go to the emotional stuff straight away before anything. Over time, these unprocessed emotions create energetic blocks that show up physically in the skin, in your glow, and even in your hair. Letting them go opens up your flow. So you want to think of lymphatic drainage, but this is inside out. And this is what gives you those brighter eyes, the healthier skin tone, and a clearer aura. And that's when you become more magnetic. And beauty is a frequency. So when you are holding on to emotional pain, your frequency is lower and others can feel it. You know, when you're having a bad day and you're driving and then, you know, all of a sudden there's like that person's in your way and what are you doing over there? And then you get a parking ticket. And, you know, I had one of those days last week and I literally was laughing because I knew it was coming. I was like, I'm doing this to myself. So when you have processed and released old stories, your frequency rises and you attract more light, literally. Yeah, you start to look fresher, lighter, and younger. If you've been on this journey, like if you've been with me for a while, you can definitely see the difference in me. So step into your natural radiance and magnetism. This is truly the kind of beauty that doesn't age with time. It only deepens. So how do we come back to ourselves when we feel heavy, low, or stuck? Now, my response to this is now going to be very, very simple. Eat a really good meal, like whole foods, like something very nutritious. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. Like if you have to have something to sleep, like if you can't sleep, do not torture yourself, and move your body. Like dance. If you're a woman, dance is so amazing. Just doesn't even have to, no, I'm not talking about choreography, just feeling your body and allowing yourself to move whatever is coming up, and crying. Those are my current choices of medicine. So radiance isn't built by avoiding heartbreak. Grief has the power to soften you instead of harden if you allow yourself to feel it fully and not get bitter. Heartbreak can definitely activate creativity and purpose. I've seen it in friends. I've seen both sides. I've seen people spiral out and I've seen people, you know, do really great things out of heartbreak and grief. Both of my businesses were created from heartbreaks and from the grief of that. Moon Main was my first, like the father of my child. Lady in Red was created after my next relationship, and then all the epic offers or anything amazing has usually come from some form of grief. And because pain can really be a return to yourself if you know how to work with it properly. It doesn't have to be the end. The women who harness grief and don't pretend that they're fine, they are really honest where they're at, then they can alchemize the pain into power and much deeper self-respect. So heartbreak. I think heartbreak is an initiation. I'm not saying it's enjoyable or fun to go through at all, but if you do, once again, it's not the end. So it is rarely just about the person. It cracks open old wounds, abandonment, rejection, betrayal, and a lot of these feelings of not being chosen and not being enough for someone is what can start to come up. Either way, if you've, man or woman, it doesn't matter. Heartbreak does not discriminate. And the pain can be the greatest invitation to evolve. So for those who are willing to sit with it and let it take you through the journey without wallowing or going into victim, that is the good stuff. To go through to the other side, because the only way it's through is to actually sit with it and be with it. So heartbreak isn't just emotional. It can show up as, disturbed sleep, massive nervous system dysregulation, obsessive thoughts, about them, low energy, flatness, tension in the face and body. Especially when you start to close up, you can start to either choose to become to evolve and let it crack you open, or to become more guarded. It can also look like emotional reactivity. So really snappy tone, losing yourself. You can also be losing yourself in trying to be chosen. And this is the bit where you start to chase and go for others or jump, from one person to another. Grief is the energy that needs movement. So when honored properly, heartbreak can be a really big catalyst for stronger self-worth and clearer boundaries, and actually even a much deeper emotional intelligence. After each time that I sort of go through this process, and I'm not saying I enjoy these processes at all, but I always also do a realignment of values, because the values can change. And each time it is good to go back, and we are going to look at values at the end of this, because they can shift around. Because you start to, for example, for me, after the last one, something else became really important that I didn't see before. So it's good I think it can be a massive catalyst for evolving and becoming the woman who actually no longer abandons herself. So when heartbreak does happen, it asks, instead of why did this happen to me? It asks, what did this relationship actually reveal? And this is where we start to take responsibility again. Where did I override my intuition? Because we all do, we see the signs. What was I tolerating? And, again, with this, as I said before, there's a difference. Like you can tolerate certain things when there is change happening in the background. But when you're just tolerating things because you're scared of being alone, that is a very different thing. Where did I shrink? And what am I now available for? So these are the good questions to be pondering. The wound is where the light enters you. You need good people around you. And the only way you get good people around you is by truly being yourself, because then those people accept you. Values are a vibration and the hidden key to radiance and attraction. So let's talk about something much deeper than skincare, deeper than your routine, and something that shapes your entire energy field, your core values. So values aren't just words, they're the standard you choose to live by. And it's true, the energy you refuse to compromise on. And this is why I say it's so important to know this while you're dating, because if you don't, how are you going to know your alignment? I've worked devotion into my values list and a freedom from addiction after my last experience. So this is what I mean when I say that after each experience you have, it's good to revisit your values, because then you start to notice what is maybe more important than what you thought. All right, so when you are living in alignment with your values, you are clear, you're lit up, you're self-honoring, you are magnetic and radiant as fuck. And your energy is congruent, people can feel it. You glow differently and you don't need to try. There's no trying. But when you don't know your values, well, firstly, you don't meet the right man or women. You make choices that drain you. You might be even in the wrong job. You might be in the wrong relationship. You say yes when your body says no, and that dissonance is how you get sick. Attract people who don't respect your standards, and this is so huge, because if you don't have any standards, if you don't know your values, then how can they respect them? And if you do, and you let them sort of get away with certain things and not knowing how to stand up for yourself, then again, this is a part that's on you. We can't blame anyone. We can't go around saying, man, I should, because we are all responsible for ourselves. So all of this, not knowing your values, really dulls your radiance. And, radiance isn't just about inner beauty. It's as you can see by now, it's energetic coherence. And when you say one thing and do another, your body knows it. How values actually affect your relationships? Well, if you don't know your values, you might chase chemistry over alignment and accept breadcrumbs. When your soul craves depth, you stay in loops with emotionally unavailable people, that sort of anxious avoidant loop. You stay in that loop, and it's, we've all had those friends that we see doing that, and you're like, what are you doing? Why are you still in that? But they just can't. Because they don't know their own values or value. But when you do know, you recognize real compatibility instead of just attention or butterflies or just chemistry, because it's not like chemistry can die out pretty quickly. And you start to attract partners who align with your heart and purpose. You become unapologetic in what you require, and this is hot. And you radiate confidence, softness, and strength all at once. So it doesn't mean just because you are soft, it doesn't mean you can't have strength. You can absolutely have both. And radiance is that it is confidence, softness, and strength. So again, just to recap, that radiance isn't just about how you look, but by doing all this work and by realigning your inner and outer world, you start to look better. And that is just how it is. You start to glow, your skin starts to look better, your eyes look brighter, because you become really aligned with who you really are. So, and that's why I love values so much. It is such an important piece of radiance. So in values are your vibration. Think of it as your vibration, and your vibration is like the attraction. So when you're aligned with your truth and your values, your magnetism just becomes really effortless. You don't have to try to be anything. All right. So what does it actually mean to live from this sort of radiant and embodied space? And this is how your beauty becomes your being. What does it mean? It means that you stop people pleasing. It means that you start to actually get out of bed and enjoy your life. It means that you start creating your life exactly the way you want. It doesn't come instantaneously, but you understand that there is process to it. You start to attract aligned relationships, people, jobs into your life. You start to attract like bits of magic into your life as well, which is such a cool thing. And then eventually you start to realize that you have a lot more control over your life than you think. And then you look back at that version of you that thought that you didn't have any control, and you're like, oh, if only you knew. It is a really, really beautiful thing. And ladies, men definitely notice a radiant woman, because it's like, imagine like a black and white movie. It's like everyone's sort of in black and white, and then a radiant woman walks through and she is like, she's in color. That's how I like to picture it, because that's how energetics work. I love this quote so much by Neville Goddard. You are already that which you want to be, and your refusal to believe it is the only reason you do not see it. It's such a powerful quote. You know, I spent 20 years in the beauty industry, and I never felt like really fulfilled in terms of my soul, my mission, my purpose, until I started to integrate the inner beauty with the outer as well, because I can see how much we need it. We all need some form of, we help each other. We sort of, that quote of we're all walking each other home is a great example. And you also need to remember that you don't actually need fixing. We are helping each other remember, and we all have different tools, different little things that inspire each other and help. So you just need to remember who the fuck you are and what you stand for. You need to know your values and how powerful you are when you're actually aligned, embodied, and unapologetically radiant. So that is what I have to say about radiance. Now, I would love to offer everyone that is watching the replay, that is tuned in, that has been like in and out of the lives, a free 30-minute call with me. Just message me just DM me, or there's a link here as well. You guys can't see that link, but if you just message me privately, I will send you the link, and it's a 30-minute radiance session with me.